We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.
So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder, what will it take for you to start opening your eyes? I wonder.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. Today is Sunday, April 10th, 2022. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, very fortunately, Shannon Q. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Relaxed, ready, hyped.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's been since you and I actually got to do a show together.
Wow.
So I'm always excited. I looked at the schedule and I was like, oh, because I'm going to be gone basically I'll be back before the end of the month, but I'm going to the American Atheist Convention. And so I won't be here next week. And I wasn't sure what was going on, but this is awesome. By the way, as a reminder, I've got this policy and we're going to try it out and can keep trying it out where once we do the introduction with the caller, if a caller's got a case to be made, if we've been doing this show, I've been doing it for 17 years. And what we want to know is what you believe and why. The why is the important part. The what is there to, drive this. And I want to be able to give people a chance to make their case. And so I've got a 1 minute clock that starts up here. You're going to get the whole minute, unless like you're absolutely terrible. And then if you're good, you probably get more time. I mean, I'm happy to give people. I've had conversations where we gave somebody almost 45 minutes. But I remember one call that lasted 45 plus minutes, over half the show. And there've been a lot like that. But I remember one in particular. I don't know. This may not be good. What do you think?
Fingers crossed.
You want to try a call?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's party. Let's do it.
Sweet. We have Dominic in California. Pronouns are he, him, wants to talk about the proof for the existence of God due to objective morality. So welcome, sir.
Yeah. Hi, Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes. And I think Shannon
great.
can probably hear you too.
I can indeed.
Okay. Well, before I start and give my explanation, I just want to say that I'm not religious in any way. I do not adhere to or believe in any cultural religion. I found them all to be nonsense. And I hope that one day they can be abolished. But I don't want them to be abolished because the government or groups of people or individuals go out and commit violence against these people for having beliefs. I want it to be abolished because people realize that it is fucking stupid. That being said,
so hang on before we start your minute. I'm going to just go ahead and bulldoze over here for a second because I'm not aware of any government going after. That's not true. But I get what you're saying in how you would like to have it eliminated. But you're calling in
using the government as an example.
Okay.
Or any
sure.
individual.
But the issue here is that you called in. I thought you called in to prove that God exists. It says here that you're a theist. It says here, Dominic, hang on. It says here you're a theist and that you're calling in to prove the existence of God due to objective morality. Are you ready to do that?
Yeah.
Start the clock.
So there's something called natural law, also known as karma, also known as consequentialism. And this is the highest proof for a creator in the universe. Because without the creator believing in what you guys believe, that such law and order could exist by chance is so small, it's almost ridiculous. Because the truth is, we live in such a perfect, harmonious, orderful universe that, as I said, it simply could not have been here by chance. There are actions, or there are invisible laws, rather, that govern the behavior of beings with high enough levels of intelligence to understand them. That means they essentially do not apply to animals. They only apply to beings like humans and beings of other higher intelligences. And what these laws are, or the most basic laws, is essentially right from wrong.
Okay, stop.
Okay.
So we used up your minute, and in your minute, you talked about natural law, and then karma, and then consequentialism, and saying those are the highest proof for a creator. And then you went into a sort of teleological argument about without a creator, believing such law and order could be chance is ridiculous. And then saying there's invisible laws governing beings with high enough intelligence to understand them. So you called in to prove there's a God due to objective morality, and you did not present anything having to do with objective morality. You just at most alluded to it.
Morality,
if you talk while I'm talking after I gave you your full minute, I will just drop you like a hot rock. Believe that. So your argument here is not an argument. I don't see that it's structured as an argument. It's just a list of assertions. For example, Shannon, do you think that karma is real?
No.
Yeah, neither do I. And so when you, caller, Dominic, assert that there is such a thing as karma and that this is the highest proof of a creator, then you've just cited a proof that neither of us accept, and you did nothing to demonstrate it. How can you fix that?
There's a broader problem too when you say that there's laws that exist in the ether. We don't have any evidence of how we would have access to those, even if that were the case.
We have the means to understand right actions from wrong actions.
So how does that exist outside of us, though? So you said basically that there's a standard that exists outside of us. How do we have access to it?
Well, it's pretty easy. We observe effects and actions in the universe, and we see what their results were.
That's just internal cognitive deliberation.
Individual.
That's cognitive deliberation based on observation.
Shannon's asking you for what's the external thing?
Yeah.
So if you commit an action and you determine whether or not the action caused harm or good, that is how you determine it. And
okay.
There are.
So the problem here, Dominic, and this is what Shannon's trying to point out, is that even when we ask you, what is this objective external thing that isn't just us making assessments, what you've described is us making assessments.
Bingo.
Now, neither of us are convinced that karma is real, or that you've done anything to prove a creator, but both of us accept that there are moral views and that we evaluate situations and actions and the consequences of those actions with respect to a particular goal. What my position is, I don't want to speak for both of us, is that you can make objective assessments about those actions, but the standard is ultimately subjective. Like, if we say well-being is the standard we're going to use, it is subjective that we picked that one instead of some other. So how do you fix that?
It is 100% not subjective. And I will explain why.
Dominic, I swear I'm completely unimpressed with you constantly making assertions. Make an argument and present some evidence, or we're not going to do this.
Okay. So are you familiar with what a right is?
Rights are things that are granted by a governing body.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are. You can say all day about what right you think you have, but what rights you have are whatever is guaranteed by the government. If you claim to have a right that isn't guaranteed by the government, what you're claiming is that you should have that right, but you don't currently.
I think he might mean a moral right as right as opposed to juxtaposition to wrong. Is that what you mean, Dominic? As opposed to you mean right as in a good thing?
No, I mean a right. A right is any action that a human being can make that is not a wrong.
Okay, so what I said.
Okay, so yes, you're agreeing with Shannon and not me, because you're talking about rights in a different way. Okay. So start again.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as I'm
So
trying to explain, a right is any action that is not a wrong.
Okay.
And so in order to understand.
Okay, so I'm going to reject that because if you were to say that some actions are right in the moral sense and some actions are wrong in the moral sense, aren't there also actions that are neither right nor wrong?
No.
There are no actions that are neither right nor wrong.
There is
And
only-
so what you're saying is that every moral philosopher in history that is to try to group things into moral, immoral, and amoral were all wrong. Nothing is amoral. So when my action is to eat vanilla ice cream, you're saying that that is either a moral right or a moral wrong?
Yeah. Or me just raising my hand. That was an action.
That is a right.
How is it
how are you
right?
defining right? Like, are you saying anything that would be described as morally neutral just gets lumped in with right?
In order to know what a right is, as I was going to explain, in order to know what a right is, we need to know what a wrong is. And the list of wrongs that a human being can commit are so small, it's almost ridiculous. So here they are.
Oh, it's ridiculous. All right. You're way deep in the ridiculous right now.
No, here.
But list off the wrongs and how you know they're wrongs.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm interested in that, because otherwise you can still align with what Matt and I believe, which is that the system itself is arbitrarily defined, but once you agree upon a goal, you can make objective statements about that goal. You haven't gotten us to where the goal itself is objective. You're just defining things internal to the system and not explaining why the system itself is objective.
So give us your wrongs.
Murder, rape,
Okay.
assault, trespass, lying, willfully lying, coercion, and theft. Those are the wrongs. Those are things that no human being has a right to do.
That's okay.
They initiate harm on other
Stop,
human beings.
stop,
Beings and-
stop, Dominic. Are you suggesting, because you put lying on this list, that there are no circumstances under which lying is a moral good?
It is not correct to lie to someone when you are willfully restricting or withholding information from them that they would make a decision or a better decision with otherwise.
So when the Nazis come looking for Anne Frank in my attic, it is morally wrong for me to lie and say that she's not here.
That's not what I said.
It is what you said, sir. If you go back and listen to what you actually said, you said that lying was wrong if I was giving someone false information with which they were going to make a decision. I'm intentionally giving those Nazis false information with which they're going to make a decision. I described a scenario under which lying would be a moral good.
Right. Well, okay. I'll agree with you, because I never said that it was moral to help Nazis or any government goons.
No, sir. Dominic, you said that you made a very short list of wrongs: murder, rape, assault, trespass, lying, coercion, and theft. And then I went to lying. And first of all, I would point out that murder is a legal thing and not a moral thing. We spend a lot of time arguing about what should and shouldn't count as murder. But I gave you examples of lying being morally good, and you started by disagreeing, and now you're agreeing with me. So should lying be on your list, or should only lying in some circumstances be on your list?
Lying when you are intentionally withholding valuable information to a person that will help them in their lives, help them make a better decision for themselves, is wrong, is what I'm saying.
Okay, Dominic, can I interject for 1 sec? Because I think
Absolutely,
I kind of figured
because
out.
I no longer give a fuck about Dominic's opinions. I want them to be backed by something. So it's all you.
I think I get. So, Dominic, it seems as though you're grounding your moral system in harm avoidance. So harm avoidance or reduction, one of the two, if not both. So you're saying that anything that causes harm is definitionally a moral bad, and anything outside of that would be a moral good. Is that, like, yes or no? Is that correct?
Essentially.
Okay, so I think I'm understanding what you're saying. So I would probably agree with you on that, but that still doesn't get us to your initial statement. Your initial statement is that that's objectively the case and exists in the ether somewhere outside of us. And I don't understand how we couldn't just cognitively deliberate our way to understanding that to be the best system, because we ourselves don't want to be harmed, and also exist in a society where if we consistently engage in harmful activities towards other people, then we cause damage to the society, which prevents us from being able to thrive within that society. Like, all of these things can be ascertained through internal deliberation. They don't need to be externally accessible and exist out in the universe as some sort of, absolute truth. They're something that can be come to through deliberation. Do you not think that this is something that could come to through deliberation? Like, it needs to be some sort of magic?
It's not some sort of magic. It's just the underlying force of creation or nature that made it this way. If you want to,
so you're just kind of describing the circumstances as they are. So you're saying, because circumstances are as they are, this would be a good moral system to follow. But that doesn't answer my initial question, which is, can you explain to me how this couldn't be come through simply through careful analysis and cognitive deliberation? Why does it need something outside of that to be the case?
Because these things are beyond human control. We don't get to decide that murder is wrong or rape is wrong. Those things.
Why not? Why don't we get to decide that? Because I would argue that we did decide that.
Because
I'd argue that nobody else could decide that.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, no one else could decide that, because it's already the way it is. And we as human beings need to...
Is it the way it is because we recognized that harm is bad for us and those around us and prevents us from thriving as a society, and came to the determination that it's a thing that maybe shouldn't happen? And as a result, collectively decided we shouldn't do it and built legal systems and societal structures around recognizing that as the case? Because that seems to be a really parsimonious way of looking at it, and makes sense and explains all of the variables that you put on the table.
Yeah, you can't just come in and say things are wrong and that's the way they are and it's objectively true. You need to actually make a case for this. And right now, the only case is that Dominic made a list of 7 things. So is Dominic our source? When Dominic, by the way, on your list of things, I can come up with trivial examples where theft is the right thing to do, where coercion is the right thing to do, where trespassing is the right thing to do, where lying is the right thing to do. I haven't bothered to sit around and try and come up with one for murder, rape, or assault, but at least 4 of your things, I can easily come up with scenarios under which they are the most morally correct thing to do, that both of us would agree is the most morally correct thing to do. If I'm having a heart attack and we're out in front of a CVS pharmacy that's closed, and Shannon breaks the glass, trespasses on their property, steals a defibrillator, brings it out and saves my life, hasn't Shannon done all moral actions?
In that instance, if breaking into the CVS pharmacy and stealing whatever they have, then yes, that is immoral.
Sweet. So now you've agreed with me that morality is that morality is situational and not universal, and that your objective list of no, sir, I'm still talking. Do you hear me talking?
Yes, and I was trying to ask you a question.
Well, I'm trying to finish talking. So who do you think's going to win here?
Okay.
Four of your 7 things, you just agreed there are situations where they're not wrongs, which means that you are agreeing that the moral assessments are situational and not universal. And you haven't done anything to demonstrate that they are objective rather than subjective. And even if you could demonstrate that they're objective, that still doesn't get you to, therefore, there's a God. Do you see where I'm stuck?
Well, you don't have to call it a God. You can call it a higher power, the underlying force of creation, the grand architect of the universe, whatever you want to call it.
I want to call it none of those things because there's no evidence that there is a force or a power or a fucking architect. Why on earth can you, if you called in to demonstrate that there's objective morality, I'm going to put another minute on the clock, and I'm going to give you exactly 1 minute to present a syllogism that supported by evidence that demonstrates that there is objective morality that leads to whatever your conclusion is. Go ahead.
The only evidence we can observe is the effects that I was talking about. And I guarantee you every scenario you would have possibly given me would have been in defense against some sort of initiator who was already initiating harm against
So what?
And those
No, stop the clock. You get no more time, Dominic. You have no clue what you're talking about, and you don't have a sensible model for morality, and you're trying to use an unsensible model to prove something that you can't prove even with a sensible one. You're not getting another minute, because when I ask you to present a case for something supported by evidence, all we've gotten is assertions that this is the way it is, that all we can do is observe facts, and all the scenarios that Matt gave might have been in defense. So what? It doesn't matter whether it's in defense. That means that it's situational and not universal, which means your list of things that are always wrong is wrong, right?
No.
Well,
Because
I'm
that's-
sorry, sir, but that's that. No.
It's-
No.
it's
You made a list of things that were always wrong, and I provided scenarios where they weren't wrong, and you agreed with it, which means your list of things that are always wrong is wrong.
Yeah, and I think I know what you're doing, Dominic. You're starting from, like I said, we agree that you're starting from either harm prevention or reduction, and then you're working backwards based on the situation that's posited from that goal, and then deliberating to find out whether or not something is moral based on that as your baseline. So I'm not sure why you need that to be something absolute external to our ability to think. Perhaps it's just because humans think it's scary when things are up to us because we're so prone to making mistakes and poor deliberations. And if it's something absolute external to us, then we can say that, okay, well, we're pointing at something definitive, and it's not up to us, which is, could be terrifying because we're so frequently wrong. And people want that to be the case. But I think that the most effective way to become a more moral society is to accept the fact that we need to agree upon the goal and work backwards so that we can make effective deliberations, because saying that there's something we don't even have access to that exists external to us, that is what morality is, doesn't answer any of those questions, and in fact actually muddies the waters. It complicates the dialogue and prevents forward progress, because we're arguing about the minutia of the details of who has access to what instead of agreeing upon a goal, which is a better way to create and implement moral systems.
Okay.
Okay, good agreement then. We can end on that. Yay, positive note.
I mean, I don't agree, but we could end there because I'm starting to have a hard time understanding you. My phone's starting to cut out.
Oh, okay. Well, we can end for that reason as well. Thank you for calling, Dominique.
Deal. On that note, thanks everybody for tuning in. We are live, and there's the numbers are climbing rapidly. There's thousands of you watching. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe down there. It really does help out. If you are looking for other ways to contribute right now, if you're watching us live in chat, there's a donate link down at the bottom. 100% of your donations go to the Atheist Community of Austin to support the Atheist Experience and Truth Wanted and Talk Heathen and nonprofits and secular sexuality and all those wonderful good things, which we'll get to a little bit later. But if you want other ways to support us, you can get your own Atheist Experience and ACA merch. The link right up there, tiny.cc/merch ACA. There's new merchandise there in the new store. And the center t-shirt there, the You're Done shirt, is only available for the month of April. Now, I mean, be clear. That t-shirt is only going to be available, I'm told, for the month of April, and then you can't get it anymore. So if you want the You're Done shirt, you got to get in there and do it now. Otherwise, if you try to get this t-shirt in May, I'm going to say, no, you're done. You can also become a member Cha-ching! I got a segue for everything. You can also become a member of the YouTube on YouTube here for 99 cents a month. That gets you out of slow mode when slow mode's turned on, and also get you some chat emoji icons and things like that. There's also the patreon.com/the Atheist Experience. That is another way that you can support the efforts here. We provide a lot of different ways, and I would never complain about the hassle of having people donating from a variety of different sources. Sometimes it's difficult to keep up with, but we appreciate the fact that there are people who want to support us, and they often want to support in different ways. Some people might not want to contribute through YouTube. Others might not want to contribute through Patreon. Maybe you want to get your merch. It's cool. And there's a couple of unofficial ways to interact with the broader community. There's unofficial Atheist Experience fan page, or fan group, I guess, not page. That's at tie.cc/FBAXP. And then there's the Atheist Experience private fan group, which we had to use the word private instead of secret because I announce it every week, and that wouldn't be very secret at all. But it is the private fan group. There's also the ACA Discord, which yet another unofficial place where you can go. And normally, frequently, I guess the hosts are there. I don't think either of us are going to be able to make it today because we have other commitments, so we won't be in Discord, but there will be people in Discord to have those conversations. And you can also send all of your feedback, your questions, concerns to tv@atheist-community.org. Believe it or not, that was the first call. Yeah, are we ready for more?
Sure, why not? Let's see. We'll find out.
All right. Tim in California, no pronouns are given, wants to know if we've seen belief as a form of mental disability. So welcome, Tim.
Oh, it's an easy one for me.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, I'm gonna bow out by saying no, belief is not a mental disability, and I'll let Shannon deal with the rest of it.
It's gonna be the same answer. No, but yeah, go ahead. Maybe you're going a different direction. So why don't you let us know what's up?
Well, I have noticed over the years the way that the most staunch believers answer your discussion in the same pathological way. And it's rife with critical thinking errors, poor articulation, thin skin, victimization, and in that way, behavior that is seemingly pathological would seem to have some sort of predictability to it. And we're already talking about a self-selected universe of people calling in. And you have a unique seat to be able to talk about belief in that which cannot, by proposition, be proven as true, as a form of mental disability, a way of thinking that is flawed enough to have anchored itself within our human simian selves.
So, no, belief is not a psychological disorder. Definitionally, pathologically, clinically, it is in no way, shape, or form a psychological disorder. It does not fit any of the criteria in the ICD-10, in the DSM-5, in any clinical environment that you would delve into. It does not fit any of the criteria. And attempting to posit that it is a mental disorder is actually, again, it's muddying the waters, so, like I said before, and is doing a disservice to people who have actual psychological disorders by making it as though people who disagree with a position or have come to a belief for reasons other than the ones that you deem acceptable to be perceived as having a mental disorder, which isn't helpful in the field. I also take a massive umbrage with people who posit it as a way of being derisive and using it as a pejorative, which does more damage than good because it helps to perpetuate the stigmatization of mental disorders and neurodivergence as being some form of inability to think, air quotes, correctly, as opposed to part of the natural spectrum of neuroconstitution. So the answer is just unequivocally no. Belief in and of itself in a deity is just human nature, and human nature itself is not classified as a mental disorder, nor as being wrong.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I really am, because I have discovered over my years that confrontation and negativity get you nowhere in discussions. I interpret science as a volunteer educator in a number of ways. And I congratulate Matt and all of you cohorts there for, because I talk about these people as behaving pathologically, I feel compassion for some of these people that just hang on to this belief, and yet I know they're reaching out. And I feel glad that you might well be the last person that they talk to, or perhaps the only person that they talk to. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because I have learned on my own that the idea that mental illness or calling people deficient because they don't think the same way is going to be an effective way of broaching the gap. I've had that argued to me by a variety of my atheist friends, and I have trouble convincing them that that is not the way. Inclusion.
Send them to my channel. I have a big, long video with 1 million citations. That's literally just called "Stop Calling Religion a Mental Illness," because I'm utterly sick of people presenting it as such and using it as a cudgel in arguments as though it is some sort of win. Because if you see that as some sort of win, that's you saying being on the spectrum of neurodiversity or having a psychiatric or psychological disorder is somehow you being less than others, and thus people who think differently are superior, which is a very unhelpful and damaging way to A, engage in dialogue, and B, perpetuate stigmatization in society. And both of those are things that I will rile against. I will die on that hill 100 times, every time, all day, every day. I will die on that hill.
Yep. And send them to Shannon's video with all the citations, because while I have a video on my channel that also talks about how religious belief isn't mental illness, and I do it from a more personal standpoint, and that is, my IQ didn't go up when I stopped believing, and I didn't recover from a mental illness when I stopped believing. At some point, I believed and was convinced, along with many other people, for a number of reasons. And when I found out those reasons were bad, I, through no decision of my own, was forced to no longer continue to believe. But to suggest that I was mentally ill before and I'm better now, there's no justification for that. It is nothing but an attempted insult to disparage the people who believe and keep them separate from those of us who don't. And that's just as divisive as what religious people are doing. Some
I used to teach marine mammalogy at Pier 39 in San Francisco for the Marine Mammal Center. And it taught me a lot about meeting the public and all kinds of people, from students of Dawkins who were from Cambridge, talking about evolution and marine mammals returning to the sea as part of the sea lions alive in front of us at K-Dock in Embarcadero. And once ran into a group of people from Kansas. And when I went into my fat versus fur evolution conjecture to talk about, the seals and the pinnipeds returning to the sea from the land, I was accosted immediately by a congregational group and evangelicals, and found immediately that by congratulating them for being skeptics and congratulating them, and they pulled the old 18,000-year-old mussel shell from radiocarbon dating mistake as the old pearl of proving that science and evolution is wrong. And I just told them and encouraged them to keep up, because their skepticism was good. I was a skeptic, but they need to keep up, and that one had been replaced by cesium carbon dating for anything that was maritime preserved. And at the very end, two of them walked away and thanked me for not mocking them, but educating them and treating them with some respect. And it solidified for me that if I hadn't learned it before, that act in itself told me that I had made an effect that day,
Yeah.
Cool.
So
I don't have anything more to
appreciate that
contribute.
you do that. And I honestly think that the people that you talk to that become most pathologically upset at you are the ones that you're doing the most good for, because they might have seriously, because of the way they behave on the air, is indicative that they might well have run out of people to talk to in real life.
That may be.
Possibly.
That could be. Anyway, appreciate the call, Tim. Thanks for giving us a chance to clear that up.
Have a good day, Tim.
All right.
All right.
We have lots and lots of calls,
We do.
including a great many theists. I've got one more set of announcements to get through, and that is that If you want to have the conversations, whether it's the sort of debate like the first call where we're discussing whether or not there is an objective morality and whether or not that leads to a God, or perhaps the next call, more about the meaning of life. If you want to have those kinds of discussions, there are a number of different options for you, including the Atheist versus Theist debates group. You can find that at tiny.cc/AXP fan debates, and you can participate in those types of discussions in there. In addition to Talk Heathen, which was on earlier today, in between Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience, I'm assuming by now everybody is paying attention to the flagship program, or so I'm told, of the Atheist Community of Austin, The Nonprofits, which airs at 3:00 on Sundays between those shows with new hosts and new segments all the time. And if you weren't familiar with that show or any of the other programs, you can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, and that's your destination to get audio only podcast copies of everything that we produce. And you can go and give them a listen. Did you miss Truth Wanted, last Friday? You can check it out there as well. And the reason you can do that, and the reason we're doing these shows, is because we have an amazing crew. Please put yourselves up on the screen. Woo! I don't see a cat. I see wolf eyes, but I don't see a cat. Anyway, those are the people who are doing the work so that Shannon and I can sit here and talk. They're screening calls. They're marking down timestamps of calls in the show so that we can make clips easier later. There are moderators over in the chat, keeping things reasonably peaceful as best they can. And a huge thank you to all the audio video people who are making this work, even though there's still the difficulty of like delayed communication over the internet. I've been doing this so long and I can't get used to it. And it's like, I know on a number of occasions, including earlier today, I probably jumped on a caller who just hadn't heard me yet because of the delay. It's really tough to get used to because you want to go at speed. It's like, hey, you just said this. Let me say this. Let me and jousting. And then the delay is kind of sucky. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Encouragement.
We have John in Sweden. Pronouns are he, him, wants to talk to us about the meaning of life. So welcome, John.
Sweet.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Shannon.
Hello.
I called you, Matt, last week, if you remember me, and I've spoken to you, Shannon, also like a month ago.
Okay.
And it's a real honor to be back on the show. I just wanted to, talk to you guys about something. And it's basically the meaning of life, but not like how you've spoken about it, Matt, in your debates. So my basic question is, so for example, we live in a life where you have to work and make money. So similarly, if we were to say that, there is no God, as an atheist would say. So my question is that when we do good or bad in this world, how will this benefit us when we, when the time comes and we all die? So why would we care about, my future son's son, if he lives a good life or not, if I'm just going to die and I'll be just, bones and back to the sand? So you see
So
where
you're asked
from?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. If you're going to be gone, why do you care what happens after you're dead? Right?
Exactly.
So why would you be?
There's no
yeah.
creator. Yeah.
Do you care about the people? Like, so you said your son's son. Like, if you have a son while you're alive, do you care about that son?
Of course, 100%.
Right. So if you care about that son, would you care about what happened to that son after you die? You would still, as a person who's alive now, want to make sure that you situated the circumstances of that child's life so that they would be set for flourishing even if you weren't around. And as a parent, I always say the hardest thing that I will ever have to do, and the most important thing as a parent that I will ever do, is teach my son not to need me. That's the goal. That is what you need to do as a parent. You need to teach your child not to need me. Not to need you. It's counterintuitive, but that's what you need to do, to set them up with all of the tools available to make sure that they can flourish even when you aren't there. So if you're doing parenting right, that should be what you want while you're alive and while you're gone. because they will still be there. You have the knowledge now that even when you're gone, they'll still be there. So what I want to do is orchestrate the circumstances of his life such that if I'm not available, whether I am alive or not, he can flourish. Right. And then hopefully he passes those skills on to his children and vice versa, because then they will contribute to a better society. And I will have been a cog in that wheel to, helping guide future generations towards perhaps being better people. And I'll only really know about that or be aware of it or be able to participate and contribute to it while I am alive. But as I'm alive, I'm aware that once I'm gone, people will still continue to exist, and I may have an effect or an impact on that. And, that's something that's important to consider. So I won't know about it once I am dead, but I do know about it now. So I'm invested in it.
Yeah. And I'm in a position where I don't have kids, but it doesn't matter at all. Everything Shannon said is still applies to me. First of all, my life has whatever meaning or purpose I choose to give it. And I'm fortunate that I'm able to kind of direct my own ship. And I'm baffled at the people who want a God to give them an externally imposed purpose, because in every circumstance, like if your parents picked what your career was going to be, or if the school or the government picked what your career was going to be, you would revolt. It would be in direct opposition to the freedom that you feel you deserve to guide your own life. And then when somebody tells you that God has a plan for you, well, people seem to get excited about that. And my response is, why would I give a shit about a God having a plan for me? The only plan I'm concerned about is my life. And even without kids, I can still be concerned with improving the world around me and the next generation and other people, because that's the way things work best when you have to share space with people, because no man is an island.
Yeah. Matt, actually, I wanted to ask you a question regarding Darwin's, survival of the fittest. So let's say we actually, let's say I'm an atheist, and I start thinking in a way where I am living just to survive. And, I start hurting people and stealing money and this kind of stuff. Obviously, I don't believe in a God, so I wouldn't care. And when I die, I'm just dead. So I'm gonna feel nothing. So my question is, it's like, what if some people actually started believing in that, where you just the fittest person survives, and they start killing and robbing and this stuff? What do you have to say to that? What's your comment?
First, can you address the fact that, sorry to interrupt you, Matt, the question was for you, but that's not what survival of the fittest means from an evolutionary perspective. It's how suited an organism is to their existing environment and whether or not they're more prone to survive in that environment and then propagate their genes is what that means. So I just want to get that out of the way. And now I'm sure Matt has all kinds of insightful things to say, but that bothered me enough that I had to interrupt. So I'll shut up now. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No,
I get
I
that.
don't.
Can I respond to that? Yeah. No, I know what survival of the fittest means in evolutionary terms. I'm saying, so for me, for example, I want to be rich. I want to, get rid of everyone who pisses me off. For example, if I go to that extreme. So why not just I want to steal and, I want to kill the people I hate, and that's it. It's done.
You won't get far living your life in that regard because you exist within a society, right? So if you're consistently going around damaging all the people around you, they will congregate to punish you for that because you're being detrimental to the group. That's just the case. And when you were talking about stealing and stuff and having to survive, you're not really talking about evolution. You're talking about psychology. And it's not something I super subscribe to, but it's a good starting point. There's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, I'm not a super fan of it, but it's a good place to start off when you're looking at psychology surrounding what motivates people in different sets of circumstances. So you need to have your base survival needs met first. And if you don't have those base survival needs met, you're going to make a different set of choices in a given situation because your motivations are guided by what necessitates your present survival. So you're in a stress environment. And once you have those needs established, then you have a little bit more bandwidth and freedom to make different circumstantial choices in different situations. But that's that's a form of individual psychology. When we're looking at groups and societal level and sociology and psychology, your choices operate definitionally within a larger group. Like you don't exist as an island, like Matt said. So you're not, in the forest foraging for food by yourself.
Yeah.
You're attempting to have relationships and operate within, like you said, a capitalist society where you need to have money in order to attain these things. And you have to exist within that pre-established structure that's in society that involves interacting with and depending upon other people to a certain extent. So if you deviate from this set of behavioral norms that causes damage to the other people in that society, then you're damaging the society at large, and that's not sustainable. So you will get punished. And that's that preventative structure that's built there, knowing that you are attempting to avoid punishment, because having your life taken away from you or being incarcerated or being a social pariah are the ultimate consequences of making those types of choices. So they would be a deterrent to making those choices, possibly, unless you felt like you could potentially get away with it. And some people do, and they try. That's just a matter of fact.
Real quickly, this fear that someone might misunderstand survival of the fittest and go out and harm people because they're suddenly convinced they're the fittest. In order for that to happen, they would have to have a fundamental misunderstanding of what that actually means, something that we can actually demonstrate to people in discussion. But when you compare this with believers of various religions, some of them are likely to get the message of their religion wrong, or perhaps the message of their religion right, and then go out and start slaughtering non-believers. When atheist bloggers are being killed by Muslims in Bangladesh, is it because they got Islam correct, or is it because they got Islam wrong? Well, you can debate that all day long, but it doesn't seem we're going to come to any sort of agreement about it. And meanwhile, I'm not aware of too many people, as a matter of fact, I'm not aware of anybody saying, hey, based on my understanding of survival of the fittest of evolution, I'm going to start slaughtering all the people who don't accept evolution. I haven't heard of that happening. And yet the opposite happens all the time. So this kind of fear that you're propping up of what were to happen in this wild circumstance, well, we would deal with it as best we can, but we already have that circumstance on behalf of religions, multiple religions.
Mm. Yeah, I see. Matt, why do you think people who are like strong believers and who take it to the extreme, why do they start, hurting people and killing people, and it's not like the atheists who do it? Since, the atheists have no fear of any God, how can someone believe in a God and be scared of hell and at the same time kill people?
Because they think that's what their God wants. If you're more afraid of being punished by your God than you are by being punished by man, then if you're convinced that your God wants you to, take out abortion clinics or whatever it is that people are doing, they think they're doing good. It's the same. People didn't join the Nazi party and help to slaughter 6 million Jews because they thought, hey, we're the bad guys. They were convinced that they were the good guys. They were wrong, but that's what they were convinced of. And it doesn't take much. Voltaire pointed out, once you get people to believe absurdities, you can get them to commit atrocities, because now you have something beyond humans to point to say, I know this seems wrong to man, but this is what God wants. God wants us to go kill those other people. God wants us to take their stuff. God gave us this land. Doesn't matter what else happened here or who else thought they had the right to it. God gave us this land. And anybody who's standing in opposition to that, you're just going to have to mow them down. It's an incredibly simple path from I am a special chosen creature of God, or my God is the right God, or my God is the one true God, to all of you people who don't accept that are a problem and you need to be gotten rid of. And if I kill them, well, God will sort it all out. I mean, I can't count the number of times I've seen that t-shirt. Kill them all, let God sort them out. You don't hear, there's no such thing as an atheist t-shirt that says kill them all, let evolution sort them out. That just can't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Matt, you remember I called you last week and I was talking to you about, coming out to parents and this kind of stuff. So, 2 days ago, I actually told my parents that, I don't believe anymore. And, I was a Muslim. And they actually kicked me out of the house. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's not going too well.
Are you,
It's not going too well.
do you have a place to stay and a support network in your area?
Yeah, I'm just staying at a friend's house. Actually, my friend and his girlfriend. So, they're cool. They're atheists, and they support me. So
Good.
yeah. So it was. I don't know. I kind of regret taking that step to actually coming out to my parents. I should have just continued to lie to them. I think I would have been at peace more.
Oh, I hate that religion does that to families. I really do. I'm so sorry. When you come out to people, what one thing that I truly despise is that being honest with the people closest to you sometimes puts you in danger and it completely changes the constitution of your life, because religious belief can sometimes be stronger to people than the relationships that are supposed to be so important to them. So I understand your trepidation and that you have that regret, and I hope that you're supported, and I'm sorry that that happened. But I'm glad you're being true and honest to yourself. Hopefully that's a first step towards a much more vibrant and fulfilled and happy life going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shannon, for that. It's just, it's surprising how the people who say that they love you, they don't love you for you. They love you for what they want you to be. And it just shocked me, and actually, my parents called me yesterday and they told me, so what, you still don't believe in God? Are you still being stupid? And I told them, well, no, I don't. And then they just, hung up on me. So it's kind of weird. And I don't know if Matt can relate to this, or you, Shannon. I don't know, the day that happened with your parents, any tips, any advices? Should I lie to them and tell them no, it was a joke? Or what do you guys think I should do?
I don't know that you should necessarily lie to them and say, no, it was a joke, I'm just kidding. I think that would be compounding the issue. You need to fight, because then you would potentially just have to spend the rest of your life lying, and that's no way to live your life. And my hope would be, and I've seen it happen before, that once people get over the initial shock, sometimes some form of relationship can be still attained based on setting very clear boundaries in the relationship regarding basically saying, here's a boundary in our relationship. Our relationship is paramount to me. We've established that having discussions about God or religion in general for all of us involved is something that causes strain on the relationship. So let's focus on the other aspects of the relationship. There are many, so that we can make sure that we retain those and keep those strong. And we just agree that we don't have conversations about what any of us believe, and we don't interfere with each other in that way, so that we can retain these strong relationships and go forward that way. If your concern is that you need to move back there in order to be able to, support and sustain yourself, I would, and I hate that this is happening to you, but suggest that you find other external structures to support yourself so that you can gain your independence, because you do not want to live your life lying to everybody around you in order to maintain those relationships, because then you don't actually have a relationship. They're not having a relationship with you. They're having a relationship with who you're pretending to be. And that is exceptionally stressful and not sustainable and not good for you.
Yeah, Yeah, I get that. No, it's just no, I don't need like money support. Like I'm good, you know. Like we come from like a wealthy family, and you know I have some lands, and but I'll do good. It's just like I've lived with my parents all my life, and it's kind of like a tradition where we even get married and we buy a house next to our mom and dad's house, and we live there. It's just this kind of community. We're not originally Swedish. We're from another country, but for cover purposes, I'd rather not talk about that. I think you know where I'm from, where I'm coming from, but it's just it hurts me a lot, and I love my parents to death, but at the same time, it's because I love them that I wanted to tell them who I really am, and this is the result.
I really think you're going to have to give it a lot more time. Don't get me wrong. I've counseled people and directly told them, yes, I think the best thing you could do is lie, but that's usually before it gets to this point. When you're at a point now where they've essentially kicked you out, to try to go back and lie and say, "Oh, I was, I didn't mean that." I don't think that that's remotely a good idea. So I like Shannon's advice. I know that in some situations it gets better with time, and in some it doesn't. And the only way to tell is to give it the time and to let them know that you're open to conversations and that you still, value your relationship with them, and that this wasn't about them. This was about you and what you thought. But I'd love to hear more of what you decide and how it goes, but I don't have any other strong advice for today.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening to my sob story.
No, not a problem. Thank you for calling.
Thanks, John.
I'll call back next week.
Much appreciated.
Sounds good.
I have to point out that, since we've been going at this for a while here, I mentioned the other shows. I mentioned Talk Heathen and Truth Wanted and Secular Sexuality. And I just realized that in the past week, I'm behind on half of those shows. I'm getting ready for the American Atheist Convention. I've got a lot of other stuff going on. I fell behind. Hey, is there like a clip or something that the crew could play that would get me up to speed on what's happened in the ACA in the last week? That'd be awesome.
Imagine.
Good government and good legislation for y'all.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, and then this sex show can get back to hopping on the good foot and doing the bad thing. Like, we would like to not be talking about politics on, it's really getting in the way of our conversation.
We're just a fact of the universe, and some people that makes them uncomfortable. For the rest of us, we've learned to live with it and figure out what to do next. And sometimes that includes going on call-in shows, but other times it means loving your family and doing things that make you happy and just being a human.
They need to appeal to people in these toxic churches and bring them in and show them that there's a kinder, gentler way to be a Christian.
I gotta say, Kelly, I might go back to church if there were pool tables or air hockey, but
if we're just going to use a methodology of common sense and not give a shit about what we believe in the world, then my common sense is just better than yours. Why? Because it's common sense. Do I need to actually provide independent justification? No, because I'll just side with my common sense because I'm irresponsible and don't care about knowing the truth.
If your view is, I have no good reason to believe this, I can't demonstrate to anybody, I just believe, cool, go get yourself a friend. I'm not your friend. I can be friendly and I can be a prick. All right, and we're back, and we got a lot of callers. I want to try to get to more of them here. We have Isaiah in Nevada. Welcome to the show. You're on with Matt and Shannon.
What's up?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Hi. Today I would like to talk about spirituality and your thoughts on it. I know you guys are atheists.
Correct. What do you mean by spirituality? I guess is my first question.
That's my first question too. What do you mean by spirituality? Because for me, the word has so many different uses and so many different meanings to so many different people that it's pretty much useless. So when somebody says, what do you think about spirituality? I need a description of what you mean.
Like connection with what's around you, using it to understand yourself more.
I don't understand what that means. Connection to what's around me. I'm not connected to my desk, but I can touch my desk. I have other things around me.
Exactly. So you can touch a tree and
I still don't know what you mean by I'm not sure what you mean by spirituality or what you mean by in touch with things around you.
Did you just say you could touch a tree and somehow change its vibrations?
Change your mental state. Yes.
You can touch a tree and change your mental state.
Your mental state changes all the time. It's because we live in a dynamic universe, and you are constantly receiving or constantly experiencing and then processing that experience. I don't understand what that means for spirituality.
Well, there are different states. So you're probably not going to feel as good in a war zone as you would in a peaceful jungle.
Okay.
So you can maybe change your
I agree that. So what the hell does Isaiah, what does that have to do with spirituality? Yes, I would probably be happier in my house than I would in Ukraine right now. But what's that have to do with spirituality?
The way you feel.
So are you just saying that, like nature gives you good feelings and thus and you're just attributing that experience of nature giving you good feelings as opposed to negative feelings to something that you're labeling spirituality?
Yes, but also in an objective way, not just feelings, because nature gives you everything you need. I mean, it gives you a mindset to think through certain problems and to grow and survive.
So you're saying like you're in a better mental space if you're outside in nature as opposed to inside or at a computer or in a war zone or at a mall. Being outside in nature gives you a better mental space to exist in. Is that what you're saying?
I would argue that for an individual, but perspective is different. So some people might want to stay in a house because they don't like the outside world because they had a bad experience with it.
There could be more than that.
Nature does have someone balance more. It keeps.
So do you know? Do you know why some of that is?
Can't escape what you are.
So do you know why some of that is though? Like why being outside gives you this sort of feeling of, connection and peacefulness. Do you know why? Or you noticed that feeling and are just labeling it spirituality because the connection's not obvious.
You keep saying things.
No, I would say because you are nature, and so
everything is nature.
Something that you are.
Everything is nature.
Exactly.
So, but you also see. So no, you said a bunch of stuff that I'm trying to be mean about it, but this is just the assessment. You said a bunch of stuff that's sophistry and deepities. Nature gives you everything you need. Well, correct. And so fucking what? It's not relevant. Everything is nature. Of course I get what I need from nature. I am part of nature. I'm a product of nature. And then you say, well, nature balances you. What the hell does that mean? What does balance mean? Balance me how?
Your mind state.
No, you think that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. You think when you say balance your mind state, it means something to you and it means absolutely nothing to me. So what does balancing your mind state mean to you?
Being connected with what's around you, not being aroused, not reacting and responding. And that's being more connected because rather than just going off.
I still don't know. No, I still don't know what you mean by being connected. I still don't know what you mean by balanced. So we started off with you asking what we thought about spirituality. I wanted a description of spirituality, and that led us to balance, which didn't tell me anything else. And now we get to connectedness again, and that didn't tell me anything else. Is there a way you can describe what you're talking about so that we can actually understand it? Okay.
So you think of a chair in your mind. The first person to ever create a chair created it in his mind and then built it in the physical. That's what.
Really? Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Okay. So when somebody just sat on a log, that wasn't a chair?
Well, they had to construct it into a chair with their mind.
They didn't have to, you don't have to make a log. If you're just sitting around the campfire and you sit down on a log or a rock, that is your chair.
But how did the chair get there? It's through the human mind.
No, wow, you're not even paying attention to what I'm saying. I'm saying that if somebody sits on a log, that log then becomes a chair. Form follows function.
That's a good point. But what if a phone, right?
Okay.
You create a phone with your mind.
Sure, there were lots of experiments and a lot of thinking done that led up to the creation of a phone. What does that have to do with spirituality? That to me is scientific progress. It has nothing to do with spirituality.
Mind is everything.
Yeah.
There's actually a book.
I wish I could hit the bong today too, but I'm actually doing a show. And when you say things like mind is everything, that's just sophistry. That's just words. Mind isn't everything. I have a mouse in front of me. That's not mind. So what you're talking about is a deepity, which means to the extent that it's true, it's absolutely trivial. And to the extent that it is profound, it is absolutely false. So when you say mind is everything, that's just not true in any context that means anything.
How about everything in your room right now? Was that not created by a human?
So what is this? How does this connect back to spirituality? I feel like we've gone off the rails a little bit. Are you saying I'm trying so much to understand. It seems as though you talked about nature and feeling connected in nature, and now you're talking about people having ideas and then enacting them in physical reality. If everything was mind, those ideas couldn't be enacted in physical reality because there would be no physical reality. There would only be mind. So that seems like a contradictory statement to me. When you're talking about feeling connected in nature, there's myriad reasons from like a neuroscience and psychological perspective why you're more like at peace, I guess, in nature. One of the things is that you're removing external distractions that are all around you, like in the room that you're talking about, that you would recognize as something that you had to do. You're taking away anxiolytic triggers that would otherwise be around you in an environment where you're like surrounded by things that you need to do, like you're cleaning or, going to work. You're removing yourself from that environment. There's also like physiological responses that we have when we're outside in nature from an evolutionary perspective that result in us having, a nucleus accumbens hit to our dopamine, because we're outside and enjoy. We're just kind of like wired through evolution to recognize and enjoy positive experiences outside, but we have such a confirmation bias that we only, when we think about outside, think about like calm streams and sunshine and stuff. We don't think about being in the middle of a hurricane or being hunted by an animal, which wouldn't be a spiritual experience, but would simultaneously also be outside. So it doesn't fit your definition of outside. You're getting a positive confirmation bias on a hit of an idea of outside that was pleasant to you. So I guess my thoughts about spirituality are that it's context-based, and there's a hindsight bias that allows us to orchestrate a certain set of circumstances where we have demonstrably and explainably peaceful experiences that we then retroactively attribute to some form of spirituality when they could otherwise be explained and are to the exclusion of other experiences that we could have in the same environment under a different set of circumstances that we then wouldn't attribute to it because they don't constitute that peaceful experience that we're attributing retroactively.
Okay.
Hello? Did he leave?
I disagree because I do think life is pretty philosophical, like death. For me, that's a new beginning. But also,
okay,
there have been studies done.
Okay, Isaiah? Isaiah? So there's no way in hell that after Shannon gives a lengthy dissertation with facts and information like that any reasonable person should respond with, well, I disagree because I think life is pretty philosophical. So we're going to let you go to do some more thinking and take some other calls. Thanks.
Okey dokey. I don't know how
Life
that
is
followed
pretty
from what I said.
Life is pretty philosophical, Shannon. I don't know why you didn't consider that an obvious response.
People always appeal to nature when they're talking about spirituality, and I'm always like, yeah, but nature's pretty messy. Like you're talking from a position of privilege where you can choose to go outside in a situation that is already, going to be pleasant to you, and avoid being outside in situations that may be unpleasant or dangerous, and then attributing being outside to the positive experience because you have this selection and then hindsight bias that's causing you to have that routine built into your brain. And it seems to be ignoring myriad other data that would disprove that spiritual experiences are just simply connected to being with nature. Like nature will kill you. You live in a house. You live in a house, Isaiah. You're allowed to go. You go outside when you feel like it, not because you have to. And that's
Isaiah also had another point that he didn't get to, which was this whole thing about the Great Pyramid's location matching up exactly with the speed of light in a vacuum.
Oh dear.
We didn't quite get to that, but just Google Great Pyramid speed of light, and you'll find plenty of things debunking that nonsense. It's one thing. I get it. We're occasionally going to have to deal with stuff that you could, if your Google foo was anything greater than the weakest, you would have already had an answer. But
that's a lot to take in.
Anthony in Virginia wants to talk about naturalism versus intelligent design. So welcome. Here we go. We get more nature. Welcome, Anthony.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Shannon.
Hi.
I wanted to go down try to get into a discussion with you about design again. So.
Okay. Let's party. So we put up the clock.
All right. Yeah, do whatever you want. All right. Can I go?
Go.
Start the clock.
If it could be demonstrated that it's extremely unlikely that purely the unaided forces of nature could have produced life or its diversification, and there are certain aspects of living organisms that appear to be best explained as a product of intelligent activity, that would serve as a reasonable basis to believe in some willful, intelligent creator is the cause. Do you agree or disagree?
I don't fully understand.
So that sounds like an abductive argument, arguing towards the best explanation, and I don't find them to be compelling, especially when we're talking about things that we have limited information about. So,
and I'm agreeing to, like, what if I posited this hypothetical that proves my argument? Do you agree that it would prove my argument? It's like, no, just like you argue from the material reality to get to your point.
So when we're talking, hang on, when we're talking about whether or not something is best explained by an intelligence, I think that we would agree that if I shuffled a deck of cards repeatedly and dealt them out and you got all 13 spades, that the best explanation for that, the most probable explanation, is that somehow or another I cheated. That through my ability to manipulate or whatever, that this hand is so incredibly unlikely that the fact that you got it is best explained by the fact that I cheated. But we also know that it's possible to get that hand without cheating. And so to tell us, to determine what the actual truth is, you need something more than, I think this is best explained by X, because sometimes the best explanation, given the information you currently have, is not correct.
Right. That's why I prefaced the statement with, if it could be demonstrated, because I want my goal is to try and find out if, simply in the mind of an atheist, would that constitute information that potentially change?
You know what you're doing though right now? Like this is like me saying, if I could demonstrate to you that my face was made out of, Swiss cheese and some sort of rocks, and I told you that was the case, would you agree that that's the case? If I create a hypothetical that begs the question and supports the conclusion of my argument, would you agree that my argument is correct? If given this hypothetical, that's what it seems like you're doing. So if you want to support intelligent design and you feel as though that intelligent design can be supported given the facts of material reality, you shouldn't have to posit hypotheticals. You should be able to point to instances in material reality that support your actual argument. If you believe it, that's clearly what you must have done. So show me what you did. How did you get to your belief that intelligent design makes some kind of sense given what you see in the world around you and understand about it that led you there? Saying to me, well, hypothetically, if I posited this philosophical thing, would you believe it? Because I need to understand your mind. Because if I posit a hypothetical and you don't agree with it, then atheist something. Like, why is intelligent design true without a hypothetical material reality?
Well, the reason I ask it that way is because I really don't want to go into trying to validate intelligent design. I'm trying to investigate people from an atheist perspective. Would that, just hypothetically, if it were to be demonstrated, do you think that would constitute reasonable evidence for belief in God? That's really what I want to.
So this entire call is so that you could investigate how we think, so that you can figure out how. Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, well, because I'm curious to know: do atheists consider that
which God?
No specific God, but an intelligent.
Then no. There's no way. There's nothing you could present me that could convince me that no specific God is the best explanation for something. You actually have to have properties, and you have to identify it. So, if your argument proves no specific God, then it doesn't prove anything.
But it would be some sort of intelligent being beyond humanity, and which is preceding.
I tell you what, Anthony, we are low on time. There's only 14 minutes left. Either present the case, either shit or get off the pot. This is, first of all, you're flawed in calling in to say, I want to find out to an atheist, what would this be? Well, Shannon and I are two atheists who may not necessarily agree on this, and there are countless others. Instead of worrying about what should convince an atheist, which is the process of popularizing something and preaching something, figure out what would convince scientists, what would be viewed as a rational argument for a proposition, not what convinced these two atheists on a show.
I'll do that next week then. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Cool.
That's more than I got from Bill Craig, because when William Lane Craig decided to respond to my take on the end of the Kalam, he talked about how one of the wonderful things about the Kalam is that it doesn't overreach and start talking about morality, which makes it appealing. And I find it funny that he wants to dismiss me as a popularizer when he's making a case for why this argument should be popular.
Yeah, because it's...
Yeah. I'll fully acknowledge I'm a popularizer of atheism, Bill, but you're a popularizer for Christianity, and as far as I can tell, little more. But
it just drives me crazy when people use an unfounded hypothetical, and they think that that's somehow going to prove their point or prove that even if their point was correct, I wouldn't accept it, which is usually what that's attempting to do. It's just like, prove your point then.
I think this is a call that's probably mostly for you. I would say.
That's probably true.
Patrick in Florida wants to talk about how Pan-Proto-Psychism could be God.
I don't know what that is.
I don't either, so we're screwed.
Hi.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hi, welcome.
I'm doing great. I've kind of developed my faith over the years. I had a quote I'd like to start out with, if that's okay, that I believe relates.
Can I go ahead, I guess, because I've heard of panpsychism, but I hadn't heard of Pan-Proto-Psychism, so I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
You could look it up, the standard EU, but my brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists. Nikola Tesla. I believe that relates to this Pan-Proto-Psychism, where a panpsychist would think that consciousness is fundamental and ambiguous. I can't say that. Ambiguous, fundamental. The Pan-Proto-Psychists believe that a proto-consciousness is fundamental. And that's what I believe, that a proto-consciousness or core for which Tesla spoke of, I believe that exists within the universe, and I believe it can be substantiated by objective reduction or OR theory by Roger Penrose and Hammeroff, where they, in that theory, let's see, OR links consciousness to processes and fundamental space-time geometry.
Okay, I think we're gonna go. We're end up flying off the rails, and we're gonna need to take this in small bites. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you believe that I suppose it sounds like you believe that all matter is conscious, right?
No, I believe
there's an aspect of consciousness to all matter. You believe it's proto-conscious.
I believe that that permeates all matter, but not that all matter would be considered conscious.
Okay, so all matter exists in an ether, and that ether is consciousness, and that consciousness permeates into all matter, right? That's fair. So everything around us is conscious. Matter exists in the soup of consciousness, and thus it gets some consciousness on it because it exists within the consciousness, right?
And I believe that's what OR's theory is showing.
So you're saying that you agree. I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. But instead of affirming, you just started to say something different. So is that correct? Did I adequately represent what you think?
On what the science shows, it would be contingent ultimately upon what science deduces. But that's
so. Is that what you think? Is that what you think? Yes or no? Is that what you think? Yes or no?
I believe there's a proto-consciousness that permeates everything, like the Tao of Tao.
Is that, okay, so it was a yes or no question. I want to make sure that I'm representing your view correctly and that I understood it correctly. So I was mirroring it back to you in order to make sure that when we're having this conversation, that I'm having a conversation based on an understanding that's accurate. So I just want to make sure that that is the case before we continue the dialogue. So can you just affirm yes or no? Is that what you believe?
Yes, I believe I would say.
Okay, cool. So now I feel as though I understand what you're saying, but my issue with it is that there's a problem with coalescence. So the problem is with coalescence with me. Why is it that the constitution, the material constitution of the brain in amongst that soup has the required attributes to develop a consciousness, but other material coalescing does not then somehow have consciousness as an emergent property? What is it that you can determine about the molecules in my brain that makes it somehow have a different, please allow me to finish so that I can finish my question. What is it that about the molecules in my brain, which are arguably made up of the same types of atomic matter that many myriad other physical things are made up of, that allows the emergence of consciousness in this theory, but my cell phone and this lip gloss do not, even though they may have some of the same components. There's a coalescence issue that doesn't address that there are only a specific set of circumstances where matter is constituted in a specific set of way, and then operates in a specific way that allow consciousness to emerge. And why is it that once the electrical impulses through my brain cease and a sodium ion transmission across my neural membrane cease, so that those action potentials don't fire my neurons anymore, why is it that material, which is still fundamentally the same material that's existing in that consciousness soup, now is no longer consciousness when minutes prior it was, and is constituted of the exact same matter only seconds later? If you can answer that for me, then I might align with you, but that seems fundamentally impossible to overcome as a problem in this belief system.
OR, I believe, contends with what you speak of, but what it is.
Well, have them call us then.
In the cell walls. Listen for a second.
No, sir. No, sir. I've sat here nice and quiet throughout this whole thing. You don't get to tell me to listen. I've been listening.
Paramecium without a brain or nervous system exhibits
I've been listening, and you have not.
You don't believe a single-celled paramecium exhibits consciousness without a brain or nervous system at all?
No.
It doesn't. It's also not answering my question. It's positing a different question as a way of distracting from the fact that you can't answer my question. So why did you not answer my question? We're saying that matter in a specific constitution will have consciousness, but moments after that sodium ion transmission stops taking place, that is brain death. The brain itself doesn't fundamentally change its constitution from second to second when that takes place. However, inarguably, I'm no longer conscious. I'm deceased. My brain, the constitution of the material components of my brain do not change in that circumstance. And in order to believe what you are saying, I would have to believe that that brain continues to be conscious, because consciousness is based on that material coalescing in a certain state in this environment that is all consciousness. So that material interaction does not cease. Something else has to be the answer. And you not being able to answer that for me and instead positing something about paramecium is a distraction from the fact that maybe that's actually a really good fucking question.
Orko-R theory deduces that consciousness could well continue after death. Yes, it does. You can check it. Look up Orko-R theory. Google it.
So how would you demonstrate that consciousness exists after death? Or is that just something that you need to retain in order for this belief system to make sense?
Came out with that news on the theory. It's very current science. It's hard to keep up with. I'm trying to.
I am capable of keeping up with brain science. Thank you. I'm all set. I'm all set.
Patrick, stop talking and listening. Is this your field? Do you have a degree in this?
Oh my
Are you
goodness.
been studying this as part of an actual project, or is this your armchair?
One of you have a degree in this.
That doesn't fucking matter.
I'm looking at it.
That doesn't matter. We acknowledged right off the bat that we don't understand this. The problem here is that you think you do, and you can't answer Shannon's question, nor have you presented evidence. Instead, you want to keep pointing to so-and-so said this, or Orko-R theory says this. I wanted to know what you believed in, why, not what you read and don't fucking understand.
You didn't even understand what.
Goodbye.
Oh my gosh. I mean, maybe it did just come out and I haven't read it. And so I don't take issue with the theory. It might be a fascinating theory. Maybe I'll go look it up. What I take issue with is the condescension and the inability to, anyway, whatever. It's fine.
You and I don't have degrees in this.
I do.
This
I'm
stuff
looking
in this
at it.
and I'm like, I also didn't call you to tell you that I know something I don't know. You called us to tell us stuff that you don't know.
Oh, goodness gracious.
It's wild. We only have a couple of minutes left. And unfortunately, man, there's people we're not going to get to today. And I really want to.
Oh my gosh. We only have oh, wow. Yikes.
I know.
I talk too much. My bad.
Let's try this one. Because Don, pronouns are he, him in Ohio, wants to say that when Matt and Shannon say we determine morality, who's the we that we're talking about? Are you there, Don?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah, all of us, in the same way that all of us determine, I'm talking about human beings. Like when we say we know that the sun or the earth orbits the sun, that's not me and Shannon knowing. It is humanity. This is a known entity within humanity. And so when we're talking about morality, it's not about me discovering or Shannon discovering. It's about us discovering. And are there going to be disagreements? Okay, yes, there absolutely are. But the way to solve them within secular moral systems is through data and debate and discussion. And the way to solve them through religious systems is coercion, conversion, etc.
But in regards to the physical universe, where we can observe the timings of the planets and the sun and the moon, that is not the same as morality, where you want to make those subjective to whatever time era we may be talking about. I know you're in your last couple of minutes, and that last call was hilarious, but
I don't understand why we would be talking about planets. That has nothing to do with morality. I'm not saying that we discover morality. I'm not saying that we discover morality in the same way that we discover the orbits of the planets.
Well, right, but everybody understands the orbits of the planets, but morality
don't.
Morality is a subjective thing in the hands of the philosophers like yourself, an apostate. I don't know.
Not a philosopher, but yes, we had this conversation about morality earlier, that the ultimate foundation of morality, which I would describe as well-being, is a subjective foundation. But once you have a foundation,
you've had this conversation for decades about morality and continue to repeat the same things. But when
because I'm right,
we have determined this. I want to know what troglodyte council convened early on in mankind's history to say this is what morality is going to look like for the next 10,000 years, when it fluctuates, and in one society morality can allow for this, when in another society and in another 10 years.
Have you been listening to me talk about this for 10 years? You would have already had the answer to this question, as I've said it over and over and over again, right up to including my lecture on the superiority of secular morality. The facts of the situation dictate what is and isn't moral. Whether or not individuals or groups or individual societies recognize it correctly is a separate issue. If you agree with me that morality is going to be described and determined based on the well-being of individuals and groups, once we set well-being as a foundation, it's not just a matter of opinion anymore. It's a matter of evaluating the consequences of an action with respect to that goal.
And there you go. When you are talking about the well-being of individuals in a society, you do not in any way, shape, or form have any unanimous concept.
I don't need one. I don't need one. Why are you objecting to things that are not a problem, which are also not solved by religious doctrines?
No,
there's no problem with secular morality that is in any way solved by pointing to a God. Not one.
It allows for absolutely anything that a person will say is moral to them without.
No, sir, it's not. No, sir, it's not. It's just like if we sit. No, sir, it's not. Let me finish. If you and I sit down at a table to play a game of chess, you don't get to just move the pieces however you think they should go. And you can have an opinion about what's a good strategy, but that is borne out by whether or not that strategy avoids losing. It's not to pretend that after me describing this for more than a decade and you saying I'm just repeating myself, to pretend that anything I'm saying is remotely in the fucking ballpark of anybody can just say, this is what I think's moral and they're right. That is moral relativism, which I've rejected for all of that decade and 2 decades as well. So your objection does not accurately address my model, and you don't have a solution to the problem either.
It's a blatant category error to compare morality to a chess game.
It's not a category error. It's called an analogy.
No, it's not.
He's talking about when you agree upon a goal, there's objective ways to get to that goal. Like, okay, I can see it going off the rails, and I can sense your frustration. But one moment, Tom, please just allow me to interject for a sec, because maybe this will help.
Sure.
Can you and Matt at least both agree that if you and him agree on a goal, you can determine the best way to achieve that goal?
Yep.
No,
Don, can you agree?
About a goal.
Don, okay, Matt, Don, we're talking 1 second. You can agree that if you agree upon a goal, you can find objective ways to get to that goal, right? I'm not talking about morality, just generally speaking, right?
What kind of goal?
Any kind of goal. You agreed on it. You agreed on a goal. Pick a goal of your choosing. Now, is there an objectively good way to achieve that goal? And an objective way to not achieve that goal?
The most productive and agreeable society.
Because you are not answering my question. Why are you avoiding the question? Do you not want to
agree? Why
that
is it that Shannon can ask a question and I can give an immediate yes, and you fucking can't and won't?
Because he knows that if he answers yes, then he's agreeing to the fact that once you agree on a goal of morality, there's objectively right ways to get to it. And he probably sees it, so he's avoiding answering it.
It's a defense mechanism to avoid. You can just run around claiming that
What
I'm
do you
fucking
mean by
wrong
goal?
when
What
I'm
if
right.
I define goal as something that goal doesn't mean?
Hey, Don, if you and I sat down at a chessboard, could we together figure out what is a bad move and tell the difference between a bad move and a good move?
Nope. Bye.
Bye, jackass.
That tells me everything I need to know just happened. The dissonance.
Thanks for being the last caller of the day
man.
and completely being a waste. There were people on hold who had other things, but this tied in to morality and everything else. And Don just decided to be an obstinate ass and flatly deny what everybody who ever watches this will know to be the truth, which is that because the two of us would have sat down over a game of chess, we would have been able to evaluate different moves to show whether or not one was better than the other, objectively, not just as a matter of opinion. He knows this is the case. And this is why he's like, well, that doesn't map to morality. Yes, it does, because once you define well-being as a foundation for morality, or whatever definition you want to do, everything after that, if you've defined a goal, becomes, hey, let's talk about strategies towards a goal. Is this action consistent with the goal? And if the goal is, let's avoid harm, which is, I think, an oversimplification of morality, but it's part of it. And so, does this action avoid harm? Cool. You may end up in a situation, as I described in my first lecture on this, where you have multiple foundational premises that hold each other up, and yet you can change and modify them. Like life is generally preferable to death, but life may not be preferable to death when my quality of life because of an illness is so much so that I might actually prefer to die. And so you have that as a general rule that then gets overwritten situationally. And the nice thing about a secular moral system is that if we find out that one of our general foundational rules is not making our decisions result in a better world, we get rid of that. Unlike a religious moral system where you have men claiming to speak for God to lay down a bunch of rules that are seemingly unchanging, unbending, unflinching, and you think that that is a solution to the problem. It's not. There is no solution to the problems raised against secular moral systems that are solved in any way by appealing to a God. Even if the God were real, showed up on this show and told me what his fucking opinion of morality was. That doesn't make it so. What people believe about something is separate from whether or not what they believe is true. This is an undeniable, unequivocal fact. What people believe about something and what is are two separate things. They may overlap, they may be identical, but there's no guarantee that just because somebody believes something, that that's the case. I kind of got off on a sidetrack there related to unrelated things, but huge thank you to Shannon for doing all the heavy lifting today while
it's a pleasure.
I got distracted. Yes. And also, you guys don't know it, but Paul was backup. So if either one of us would have got kicked off, like you would have had Paul. And
yeah, sorry everyone. We couldn't agree on which one of us got to rage quit. So
we both
never
wanted
brought
to quit
Paul
to let
up.
Paul so we'll get Paul on another time. But huge thank you to everybody for tuning in. Thanks so much to the callers, including the ones who were, not particularly honest, because we also had some honest calls as well, and some things that just, there's interesting discussions. But if you're going to call in and present the why for your beliefs, be ready for some questions, and usually some simple ones. Like, I didn't think there was anything that difficult. Yeah. Can we agree on finding a goal? Nope. Goodbye. Okay. Cool.
I just registered with me what it would mean if I said yes to that question. See you later.
We're the irrational ones. Huge thank you to the crew. Put yourselves back up on the screen there, doing all the work that we need them to do for all of this. Much, much appreciated. And for everybody who's supporting in all the different ways you're supporting, I see the donations came in. We are greatly appreciative. I will be out next week. And who's on next week? Somebody in chat can can tell me. And back in 2 weeks, but next week's show should be hot buttered awesome. Nobody's typed in yet, so I'm vamping.
Dun, 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 dun.
Jim and Forrest.
Jim and
I
Forrest.
knew there was a reason I thought it was
Forrest
going
is
to be awesome.
coming.
I'm doing a show with Forrest later tonight
Forrest is
in
so
Captain
great.
Dadpool. Anyway,
Oh,
please
cool.
take care of yourselves.
I'll tune in.
If you have believers in your life, family, friends, pastors, preachers, and they are able to articulate what they believe and why, please get them to call in. Because even if we wind up disagreeing, as we did on whether or not the assertions about objective morality necessarily lead to a God, or whether or not the natural order leads to it, even the pyramid stuff that we didn't get to address, even if we ultimately disagree on it, it's still conversations that are worth having, because for each person who calls in, there's probably thousands of people out there who believe the same thing that they believe. And if they see this and they hear the responses to it, it may be the one and only time that they get to hear responses to bad information from internet apologists and I suppose just to make Bill Craig happy, internet philosophers as well. But as a popularizer, my time here is done today. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks to the crew. Thanks, everybody watching. Take care. We'll see you next week.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.